Good morning and welcome everyone to our webinar. I'm Sharon Francis, Business Advisor for the Minority Business Assistance Center based here in Columbus. And we are so pleased to have you all here today to join us as we will be learning more about workers' compensation. Um, but before we introduce our presenter, I'd like to open the floor to our director, Director Jesse Mark, who will share with you a little bit more about our organization. Jesse?
Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Sharon, for the introduction. As Mrs. Francis said, my name is Jesse Mark. I'm the Regional Director for the Minority Business Assistance Center, powered and hosted by your Columbus Urban League. We are responsible for 18 counties throughout our great state, sweeping as far north as Morrow, Marion, Knox County, headed all the way down to Athens in Washington County, where we also have a satellite office at Ohio University's Innovation Center. We provide coaching, technical assistance, trainings like you're in today, financial readiness, certifications with your state level certifications, access to capital, assistance with the state's bonding program. Long story short, your MBAC Center is a resource for resources and a resource to resources. So happy that everybody could be here today. You're going to learn a lot. If you've never heard of Melony, if you've never heard Melony speak before, she is exquisite. She is, you're in for a treat. So I'll kick it back over to you, Sharon. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. As he said, Melony Bryant is our presenter today. She joined the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation as its minority and small business advocate. She's worked for them since January 2014. Has more than 20 years of workers' compensation experience. And as the advocate for minority and small businesses, she assists minority and small businesses to navigate through the workers' compensation system. So you're going to hear it straight from her. And certainly, if you have any questions, the chat is available for you to just put your questions in as she moves forward with her presentation. And we will take the time to stop and answer and respond to those questions. So, again, thank you for joining us. And thank you, Melony, for accepting our invitation and turning it over to you now. You have to unmute.
I'm so sorry about that.
Mhm.
Thank you, Sharon, and welcome everybody. Thank you for having me this morning. It is a pleasure to be able to speak to you. One of the things that I always like to do in my role, and I take pride in, is making sure you know what you don't know when it comes to workers' compensation. So Sharon is going to be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, put those in the chat. And Sharon will interrupt me during my presentation if there are some questions that she feels as though they need to be answered during the presentation. So I love a lot of questions. I like to make this presentation more interactive versus just me sort of spewing all types of workers' compensation facts at you. So please ask your questions and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so who are we as the Bureau of Workers' Compensation? One of the things that most people are not aware of is that we are one of 4 monopolistic states in the country. And what monopolistic basically means is you either have workers' compensation coverage with our agency or you do not have workers' compensation coverage. Our roles and responsibilities are to ensure that anyone injured while they are working in the state of Ohio is covered, meaning their medical benefits, their compensation, any type of missed wages, those are compensated through our agency. And I tell everybody, if you say these 2 words, hurt and work, it must come through our agency. And I know that's confusing for a lot of people in the sense that they believe I have liability insurance, or I'm with Progressive, or I have Aflac, or I have health insurance, and so I'm covered. That is not the case for Ohio, North Dakota, Washington, and Wyoming. We are monopolistic. And so no other agency or entity is permitted to provide workers' compensation coverage in those states. So you must come through us. And the good news is we go through this presentation, we're relatively inexpensive. And I need to update my bio because it says 20 years, but I'm dating myself. It's now 30 years. But in my 30 years of doing workers' compensation, I've yet to have any individual say to me they can't afford to go into business or their workers' compensation is too expensive. So it is relatively inexpensive, and it is something that allows you to sleep at night well as a business owner, knowing that should you have an injured worker, an employee get hurt at work, that they're fully covered. So your workers' compensation premiums do pay for any costs that are incurred in the claim. We actually have claims that are now at $1 million, and they're for people who were injured 60 years ago, and their injury obviously was very severe. Maybe they're paraplegic. We continue to pay for their medical expenses, their missed wages, and your premiums cover that claim in full. So it is peace of mind for a business owner in the state of Ohio. So we talked a little bit about what workers' compensation is. As I said, we pay for indemnity, medical. Our system is also no fault. So I do get employers occasionally who will say, we had told them not to do that. We told them to wear their safety goggles. They didn't wear their safety goggles. That something flew into their eye and they had an injury. Can I deny that claim? You as the employer can always deny claims. However, the fact that they weren't wearing safety goggles isn't going to be relevant in the determination as to whether that claim is allowed. It's sort of looked at as a parent-child relationship. So if your responsibility is that employee comes to you fully healthy into your workplace, then they should be leaving your employment or your place of employment fully healthy. So anything that they do while they're under your employment, while they're being paid by you, your responsibility is to make sure that they are still safe and healthy when they leave. So if they're not wearing their safety goggles, which I get that question a lot, then you should probably write them up and start progressing with potentially terminating that person, because ultimately them not practicing proper safety protocols within your workplace is going to mean that you now have a workers' compensation claim. And also, we have no true tail of a claim. And that basically means if you're familiar with other types of insurance, they may say a sprain is only eligible for benefits for 18 months. Our system is driven mostly by physicians. And so if a physician says that the injured worker needs to remain off work for X amount of days, weeks, or months in general, then those things are allowed. And so it's medically driven. They have to obviously provide medical documentation to support that, but there is no true tail. So a claim could go on for quite a bit of time if a medical provider, their treating physician, deems that they need to remain off work or continue to receive treatment. So let's talk about who is required to be covered for workers' compensation. If you have one or more employees, you must have workers' compensation coverage. So that is the law. And in my 30 years of doing this, I love my small and minority businesses, but just because you call someone an independent contractor doesn't necessarily mean they are an independent contractor for workers' compensation purposes. We always say if you tell them when to come to work, you tell them when to go home, you provide the materials, the equipment, the training. In general, for workers' compensation purposes, that is an employee and they must be covered. I oftentimes get questions from individuals who will say, well, their hours are flexible. Well, for instance, tomorrow I have a 12-hour day because I have to travel to Elyria and present an exhibit. So today I came in later because just to flex my hours out. But that doesn't make me an independent contractor just because I have flexibility within my schedule. So keep that in mind as to whether these individuals are truly independent contractors or employees. True independent contractors, you can call them and say, hey, I have this job today. do you want to do it? And they can say no. They can say, you can call me next month, you can call me a year from now, you can call me never. They have full control over the work that they do. Those are independent contractors. Anyone who does not have that ability to say no to an employer is most likely an employee, and that's really important to understand. Sharon, do we have any questions in the chat? Usually I get a couple of people with questions about independent contractor versus employees.
None so far.
Okay, you guys make sure you put your questions in the chat. So next I want to go to this slide. This talks about who might want to consider getting elective coverage. So maybe a few of you on this call don't have employees and it's just you. So you're a sole proprietor or a partner. And you're thinking, do I need to have workers' compensation coverage? By law, you are not mandated to have workers' compensation coverage for yourself. However, what I said earlier about hurt and work still remains true. So I get quite a few sole proprietors who say, I'm not going to get coverage for myself with my business because my husband or my wife has health insurance and I'll just file it under that. Most people do not know by law, private health insurance has to deny any claim that occurs while you're working. So if that claim gets filed under your private health insurance, it would be denied. And at that point, you'd have no recourse as far as having someone compensate medical expenses, missed wages. So I always ask my sole proprietors who say, should I get elective coverage for myself? Do I need to cover myself? And unfortunately, I can't give them any answer as to yes or no. It's a question for them to answer themselves. But I ask them a few questions. Is the work that you're doing hazardous? So are you out in the field? Are you doing things in which you may have a tendency to be injured? If the answer to that question is yes, you probably should consider getting workers' compensation. Now, for a lot of, I get IT consultants, people who just sit behind a desk like I do most of the day, those individuals may not need to get elective coverage because the likeliness of them being injured isn't really high. And then I also ask them, do you have another primary source of income? So do you have another full-time job and you're sort of working your way up to ramping up your business on the side? And the reason why that's important is because if they were injured doing work for their business and were not able to work at their primary source of income, then they would be out of both sources of income. If they had elective coverage for themselves and they were injured in their business, they would also get missed wages and compensation for not being able to work at their primary source of income. So that's something really important to understand. And as I said, we pay for compensation, medical benefits, but if you do not have elective coverage for yourself, you're basically rolling the dice to see and hope that you don't have a workers' compensation claim, because at that point, that bill becomes yours. And as all of us know, anybody who's been to the urgent care or to the emergency room or a doctor's appointment, those costs are extremely expensive. So you could be looking at a $20,000, $30,000 bill that unfortunately insurance is not going to pay for. And if you did not have coverage with our agency, then thus we will allow the claim, but we will bill you dollar for dollar for everything that we pay out in the lifetime of that claim. And I want to go back to this slide just about why to comply, because I know a lot of individuals are thinking like, well, maybe I don't need to get this and maybe they won't know. Unfortunately, it is written into law and into statute. And we have a special investigations unit that not only do they track fraud with injured workers who are saying they can't work, but we find them out, on roofs doing side jobs and making money and double dipping, if you will, into the system. They also investigate employers. So they a lot of times will drive around the state and they'll see signs of grand opening, new opening. And they will go back and research to see if that employer actually has workers' compensation coverage. And if that employer does not have workers' compensation coverage, then they will contact them, let them know what they need to do to be compliant. But it is something that you don't want to have to deal with that. And ultimately, not being in compliance means that you have potential liability that you could avoid by just paying workers' compensation premiums. Now, before I get into our premium discount programs, one of the questions I typically get in these workshops and webinars is, well, how much is workers' compensation? And I always tell people, I'm good, but I'm not that good. So we have over 600 manual classifications, and manual classifications are basically descriptions of the work that you do. So for instance, Sharon and myself, we are considered clerical individuals, meaning we operate in a clerical sense. Someone who works in construction, and there are several different types of construction manual classification that get pretty specific, but each type of work or manual classification is assigned a rate. And that rate is based on the hazard of the job. So for Sharon and I, our rate is pretty inexpensive to cover someone like us because we don't get a lot of claims flooding into our agency for clerical individuals because we sit behind a desk for the most part. However, as you get into the more hazardous type of work, there is a difference in that rate, and it is obviously higher than the clerical manual classification. The only two things that I need to have from you, if you want me to give you an estimate of what your premiums may be, is your exposure, which is your payroll, so an estimated annual payroll, and then the type of work that you do. And then I can look up the rate for that, calculate that times the payroll, and give you an estimated annual premium. You can pay your premiums monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Whatever best fits your business model is how we allow you to pay. So we have some people who go back and forth a couple of times. Once they sign up for coverage, it sends you to being bi-monthly. So it defaults to bi-monthly. But some people, after having coverage for a couple of months, say that really isn't working for me. I want to be quarterly, and we switch them over to quarterly. So that is an option that is available to you throughout the year. The other thing to keep in mind about our premiums is when you open coverage with our agency, so you apply for coverage and fill out the application, we ask for, as I said earlier, an estimated annual payroll. Premiums are calculated based on that estimated payroll. However, at the end of every policy year, we do what's called a true-up process. So it's basically reconciliation. So we say we build you premiums based on $100,000 of payroll. Tell us what your actual payroll was. And if your actual payroll was less than that $100,000, then you get a credit to your account and we send you the difference. If your actual payroll was more than that estimated payroll that you put on your application, then you owe additional premiums. So every single year we go through this process to make sure what you have paid us in premiums is accurate to your actual payroll. So let's talk about some premium rebate programs. One of the most important programs for anyone on this call who has not applied for coverage yet, but knows in the future they're going to be applying for coverage, is our Grow Ohio program. Grow Ohio was started, I think, maybe over 10 years ago. And the reason for this program was to incentivize businesses to start business in Ohio. So instead of someone just coming in and paying their premiums flat out, for the first 2 years, once you open your policy, you're eligible for a Grow Ohio discount. There are two options under Grow Ohio. So you could choose to enroll into a group rating program. And group rating is basically what it sounds like. It lumps similar employers together who do similar types of business. And so you're more getting a better discount by the volume of employers in that group. And you can get up to a 53% discount. This program does require you to enroll with a TPA, and TPAs are third-party administrators. So they serve as your representative. So for instance, if an employee were to be injured and have a workers' compensation claim, they may choose to hire an attorney. Most employers in the state of Ohio who have claims opt to have or hire a third-party administrator or a TPA to manage their programs, to attend their hearings, to file motions, appeals for their workers' compensation claims. The most important thing to understand is you only have 30 days from the date that we assign you a permanent policy number. So if you apply for coverage today, it typically takes us about 30 days to assign you a permanent policy number. You have 30 days from that date to apply for this program. And as I said earlier, everything that we do is written into law and into statute. And so if you call me on that 31st date and say, hey, I want to be in a program, there isn't anything I can do for you. So what I tell everybody is I'm going through my presentations, and when I finish, I'll go back to the slide with all my direct contact information. Give me a call, email me and say, hey, I saw you present. You told me to call you. What are my next steps? And I'll walk you guys through that process.
Sounds good. Melanie, we do have a question in the chat from Shanika. She says she recently signed up for BWC and she received an email about Grow Ohio, but it came from Sedgwick. Is Sedgwick a TPA? That's her question.
Yes, Sedgwick is a third-party administrator, and they're one of the largest third-party administrators in the state. So yes, they were contacting you, all of the third-party administrators, because most of everything that we do is public records. So they request on a monthly basis all the new policies that we've received or applications. And then they do reach out to try and get your business to assist you in enrolling into a group rating program. So yes, that's exactly what that was from.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the other option in Grow Ohio, if you choose not to enroll with a third-party administrator or a TPA, you could just choose to receive an automatic 25% discount. Both of these options, the 53% discount through group rating with a third-party administrator or the 25% discount, have safety requirements. So you have to complete a safety survey, and when you go online, it will show you the options. The safety survey may take all of 7 minutes to complete. It just asks some basic safety questions about your flooring, about fire extinguishers, just something to give you a guideline as to whether you may need further safety assistance from our agency. But there isn't any right or wrong answer. It's just trying to assess where you are at within your safety in your organization. And you have to be in compliance with your payments and coverage, meaning don't be lapsed in coverage, meaning being late on your payments to us. And then you would receive one of those 2 discounts. But I just also want to reinforce again, 30 days. So there is a timestamp on all of our programs, and missing those deadlines means you miss out for that year, and you're going to have to wait a year paying full premiums. So just when I get to the end of the program and get to my slide, either, I don't know if Sharon's going to send out a copy of it or ask me to send out a copy, but take a snapshot on your phone, but please keep my direct contact information. You don't have to call the 800 number. You don't have to get transferred around to 2 or 3 people. You can get me directly, and I will walk you through the process.
We will do that.
So group rating, it's a program with under Grow Ohio, and I know this is where it gets a little confusing, but any of you who are not new policyholders who've had a policy with us for years, you are eligible to apply for group rating as well. you still have to go through a third-party administrator. Those third-party administrators will look at your claims losses. So basically, they're looking to see if the amount of losses that we find acceptable for you as an employer. So based on the hazard of what you do and your payroll, every employer is assigned an amount of losses that we think, accidents are going to happen in this specific type of business. And we estimate what's reasonable is X amount of dollars in cost. So compensation, medical benefits. If your losses are below that amount that we've set in general, you're eligible for group rating. And group rating does give you up to a 53% discount. And this program is our most popular program. The majority of employers who are eligible for group rating are in group rating because it is an upfront discount. They get off the top of their premiums. And outside of that safety requirement that we talked about, typically they're in good shape. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of our safety grant programs. These programs are amazing, and we've had quite a few employers take advantage of them. So safety intervention grants are basically, you say, I'm currently doing this procedure manually, or I'm using old equipment, but there's new equipment that's out that would be more safety focused and would lead to fewer accidents. We will give you for every dollar that you pay into it, we will give you $3 up to $40,000. And this is something that a lot of new businesses take advantage of as they're looking at equipment and buying that equipment and thinking this is too expensive. These grants are available for you to say, okay, I can't afford this because I just have to put in $1 and Bureau is going to match me at $3. And it could even be, we've had some employers get very engaging with us and creative in the sense that they design a type of equipment that could be safer. And we actually do pay for those funds as well for them to send that over to a manufacturer or have it manufactured themselves. And we will give them $3 to every $1. So we've seen some pretty creative things with the safety intervention grants, but something for you to keep in mind moving forward in the future, should you see a need within your business of either upgrading your machinery or equipment or changing a manual process to be something that's more automated. And then our drug-free safety grants. This program is great because, as everyone knows, most employers now are doing drug testing for their individuals who are interested in becoming hired. Those testings can be pretty expensive. So the drug-free safety program grants do pay for the testing, program policy, and updates of your program on an annual basis. So it's something also that's out there should you desire to have testing for your employees and have a drug-free workplace program. One of the main things that I like to emphasize with this program is it doesn't require you to terminate after a first positive test. So say you've hired someone and they have an accident and you test them after the accident at the hospital and they test positive. This program does not require you to terminate that individual after their first positive test. So it does allow you to have flexibility, because I know more employers are getting more empathetic to so many people out there do have abuse issues and just need assistance. The program does require for you to provide assistance and resources. You don't personally, as the employer, have to do that. You just have to have a list of resources that you can send them to so that they could get assistance. But I think it's a great program in trying to help people be employed, because we know employment is a main determinant of everyone's overall health and wellness. If you're not working, you're probably not in a good mental state, and then your physical health as well is going to be go downhill as well. So it's something we're trying to help out employers and also help out individuals in being gainfully employed. So I would say our most underutilized unit within the BWC are our safety services. So we have regional safety consultants around the state. They provide free safety training and classes. Any of you who are in the construction industry are familiar with OSHA 10 and OSHA 30. Those classes, if you go to a private vendor, can range anywhere from $300 to $700 per person. We provide those trainings for free. Also, the safety specialists, they're willing to come out, and they love to come out to your individual business and location. They will walk out, do an inspection, and give you a report of all the things that they see could be safety hazards. The great thing about them is they are not compliance. So they're not going to go back and tell OSHA that you're not in compliance. Their job is to let you know if OSHA comes through, what am I going to be? What am I going to get dinged for? What fines may I be facing? And then they will assist you in rectifying all of those issues, send you in the right direction to get the resources that you need to remedy those. But they really are there to just help you and tell you what could either lead to accidents, not only just for your employees, but also for your customers, and what things might OSHA fine you for moving forward in the future. So your premiums pay for their services, so there is no additional fee to use them. I have some employers who they are best buds with their safety consultants, and then we have employers who know nothing about them and don't use them at all. So I'm a firm believer in, if I'm paying for something, I'm going to get something from it. So I recommend using them and giving them a call. And every employer who has a policy with us is assigned a safety consultant. So you have your own personal safety consultant. I can get you in contact with them if you want, and just email me, call me, and I'll get you their direct contact information, and they will be willing to sit down and talk to you and figure out what resources they can provide to you.
Melanie, that's some good information. Do you have any kind of marketing materials or anything that you could share with me that I can put it in our newsletter? Because I'm sure that a lot of people like me did not know that these services were available, especially at no cost. I'm thinking particularly of the safety training and also of the grants, the safety grants that you are offering. I think that's good information that we can share with our client base if you have something.
Definitely, yes, we do have. I know we have some one-pagers on not only the grants, but also on safety services. So I'll get those to you, Sharon,
Fantastic.
when we get off here, and that would be great information to share.
Yep. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Lastly, I just want to touch on your BWCE account, and all of us for, your gas, your electric, your mortgage, your car payment, we all do things online now. And of course, with BWC, we always recommend that every employer logs in and gets an e-account, because it does allow you to manage your claims. So you don't have to pick up the phone necessarily. You just want to see, when's my next bill due? You just log in and you can find that out, just like we do with everything else in our day-to-day lives. One of the most important things that I want to emphasize with having an e-account is please make sure that the contact name and email address are correct. We get so many undeliverable email addresses anytime we send out correspondence to employers, because the person has either left that business or they've changed their email address and they haven't notified us. And so information that we're sending out about your bill's going to be due, true up is coming up, you have to get these things done, that employer isn't receiving those notifications, and oftentimes they do miss those deadlines. So it's really important for you to make sure that the contact and email address are correct. I hate getting calls from businesses who have missed those deadlines, because as I said earlier, I really, there's nothing we can do, because the law says it's 30 days or it's this date that you have to complete your true up. And I know you guys wear 10 different hats on a day-to-day basis. So it's not like you're these large corporations that have someone who is dedicated solely to workers' compensation. So you're trying to navigate through everything on your own. And those emails oftentimes are the main triggers for you as a business owner to know that you have a premium payment coming up so that you don't lapse in your coverage or miss important program deadlines. So please make sure you sign up for any account if you don't have one. And then I would say maybe put a reminder in your calendars to maybe twice a year, check that and make sure it's still accurate. Anytime you make changes in personnel, then update that and add that additional person. So at least someone is receiving our correspondence and our notifications. And then that's our email address. This is a slide everyone uses in the agency. It's great, but I'm going to provide you with my direct contact information. You can email me, you can call me directly. I prefer email because wherever I'm at, I can get it on my phone. I can usually research what your question is. And then by the time I respond to you, I'll have the answer. So email is usually good for me. And I'm going to go back to that slide with my contact information. So this is how you get me directly. And that's my business cell, which I always have on me, and then my direct email as well. And you'd be amazed. I get employers who saw me present 2 years ago and they go, hey, you presented 2 years ago and you said that when I was ready to open coverage, I should call you. And so I walk them through the process. Any workers' compensation question, because I've been doing this for so long, for almost 30 years now, I can generally answer your question for you. And we don't have to bounce you around to different units or different departments. So I thank you all for attending, and I welcome any questions in the chat, or you can, I think Sharon said you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question directly, but please feel free. This is your opportunity to get all of your workers' compensation questions answered.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melanie. This was truly informative. And yes, and if you do have any questions that you want to raise verbally, you can do so, or if you just want to put them in the chat. We appreciate this information that's being shared, and this session is being recorded, so we will provide this recording to you. And Melanie, is it all right if we were to include the presentation as well? If they wanted to
Yes.
have the slideshow? Okay, great. So we will make sure that you have that. Any questions? Okay, great. All right then. Well, again, thank you for taking time with us today. See, I do want to let you know what's coming up. Of course, you do have our Melanie's information. I'm putting it up on the screen once again for you. And then we do have upcoming trainings on next week on the 30th. We will have Charlene Davis, who will be presenting on human resources and why every business needs it. And often we may think, well, I only have 1 or 2 employees or anything like that, but it's important for you to know this information even ahead of time, because if you're going to be growing, there's information that you're going to need to have handy so that you can properly serve your employees and also protect yourself. So it's important, and hope that you'll be able to join us next week. In April, we have ODOT DBE Certification Academy. We'll also be doing a reboot of our e-commerce 101 presentation with Priscilla Texiera, and this will be hosted through our Athens office. And then on the 28th, building your hair, beauty, personal care services business. Okay. So again, we are appreciative of you being and taking your time joining us today. And we look forward to serving you. If you have any business needs as far as certifications, access to capital, or any other issues that you're facing as a business owner that you'd like to be able to discuss with us, we are here to serve you. Thank you again for taking your time with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.